In a number of spiritual paths, your deeper questions might find answers in a session in the pastor's study. You're looking for something more, so let's offer you something different. Merry meet, blessed be. I'm Aiden Odinson, High Priest of the Temple of Gaia and a priest of the Universal Gnostic Fellowship, and welcome to In a Very Different Pastor's Study. And this is the first one. Why did I choose that name? Well, in a more conventional church, the heavy discussions get taken place in the pastor's study. That's where you go if you want to discuss the heavy stuff. And if you wanted to get any heavier, you'd probably go to a seminary library, maybe down in the basement or something like that. But the heavyweight stuff in a regular church is discussed in the pastor's study. Of course, I don't particularly like the term pastor for a reason. The term pastor comes from the term shepherd. As a matter of fact, pastore in Spanish is shepherd. Well, the problem with that is I don't want you to be like sheep. I've heard stories about what it's like to herd sheep. Especially, one particular story was how the sheep got turned into the wrong direction, and the first couple of them walked off the edge of a cliff, and the rest of them just kept walking ever so nicely after them until they had all walked over the cliff. I don't expect that from you. I don't want that from you. I've often said that if we grow to the point where there is a Wiccan hospital, the best name for it would be the Good Cat Herd. Because, no. It's like leading cats, like herding cats, yeah. And that's fine, because I look forward to it. Because it's on each and every one of us to find our own direction, isn't it? But in a very different pastor's study, because, well, I am very different. This is very different. We may go back to the chapel, but I figured the first one needed to be right here in my study. And, yeah, in the bookcase, under the Norwegian flag that's there in honor of my mother's heritage, you'll find some rather heavyweight books. And books in other places. Some things not typical that you'll see here are ham radio gear. Of course, a computer would be found in this day and age, but not to the extent and for the use that you see them here. Because I'm also the webmaster. Enough intro. We need to get into what we're talking about today. Confronting evil. If for no other reason than the fact that some of us are going to get accused of it, or be accused of being led into it. Some places there is so much talk about evil that I figured this would be a good first subject to discuss. After all, Some fundamentalist Christian preachers spend so much time talking about the devil and the power that the devil supposedly has that I wonder who they're actually worshiping. We'll leave that for another time, but right now we'll talk about evil. And it may be closer than you think. And some people don't even know what it really is, even though they may be very heavily involved in spreading it. Yeah. So number one question, before we get into anything else, is how do you define evil? Well, I remember what one Supreme Court justice said about pornography. He said, quote, "I can't define it, but I know it when I see it," unquote. Well, we can do better than that in this case. At least we can give some definition to it. Some definition, although it may not necessarily be worthy of the new Oxford Unabridged English Dictionary. Maybe we'll at least have something we can work with. Number one of my favorite definitions of evil is a perversion of something good. And that does a lot right there. For a few good reasons. Number one, evil will often speak words of righteousness, friendship, protection, even love. Oh yeah. And sometimes the only way you can recognize it is in the result. Have I clarified anything for you? Yeah. There you go. There's an example. Just popped into your head, didn't it? Sure. And many others. In the Catholic Church, there's this priest abuse scandal going on. Actually, many of them. I think it's actually unfortunate that it's only the Catholics that are getting the publicity. I can tell you of other denominations that have had similar situations over the years. But an authority, an ordination, and people ought to understand that there's certain things you don't do. I enjoy my beer. And if you want to see a smile on my face, offer me a Guinness. But don't expect me to put away a six-pack in an evening. No. I like my scotch. But a fifth is going to last me a long time. Many, many, many days. I could go down the list. I'm in love with Lady Stormy. And that's the end to any discussion on that area. Yeah. So, there we go with something that might give you some idea of a definition. Now, the next question is, of course, what do you do when you confront it? Well, first off, of course, you've got to recognize it. And you've got to be selfish. I've said this before because so many times Pastor Passplate or Mrs. Broadbean, the Sunday school teacher, will tell you all the horrible things about why not to be selfish. Well, you have to be selfish to a certain degree. And it's healthy and it's right. Because nobody's going to look out for you unless you do first. And the second is to be careful where you go for advice. You don't want to get advice from somebody who's part of that agenda. And be prepared to make some tough decisions. Look carefully for answers. And look for the roots. By the time you've gotten to the point where you're listening to somebody like me, you've gotten some principles. Certain things that are the bedrock of who you are and how you do things. And those principles are at your root. And you know what? If they've been there that long, there may be a reason why. Is what you're being told contrary to that? So look for the roots. You might find an answer there. Usually, a good answer, a loving answer, a caring answer, an answer that's not going to hurt you, is not going to contradict what you've been told all along, what you've come to expect. And finally, don't think that this quick video has prepared you for it. I'm Aiden. Blessed be. Uriel's Gifts and The Secrets in Plain Sight are sponsored by the Temple of Gaia. At Temple of Gaia, we don't train you to our path. We show you how to find and pursue your own path. Above all, we tried to provide a great place to come together and to share. We're located in Collingdale, Pennsylvania, just outside of Philadelphia, and wherever cyberspace can be reached. To learn more, visit our website at templeofgaiainc.org or our meeting place in cyberspace at templeofgaia.ning.com. Thank you for coming. Feel free to return at any time. We intend to always have something for you here. Blessed be. This has been a presentation of the Wise Ones Net. Merry part and blessed be.